Welcome to Janet Today, Janet Tomorrow, Janet Forever, the Janet Jackson podcast where two cousins discuss all things Janet Jackson. We are so excited to talk today with our very special guest, Deonis Cook, artist, producer, background vocalist extraordinaire who's worked with Jill Scott, Tyrese, Kirk Franklin, Music Soulchild, and of course, our very own Janet Jackson. My name is Courtney, and I'm here with my cousin.
Cousin Kam. Hey, Deonis.
Hey.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
No problem. Glad to be here, guys.
We're big fans of yours, and we follow you on IG, and we love how you give music lovers backstage pass into your creation process. Can you tell us how you got your start in the industry?
Man, so I'm going to take y'all back to like 97. I got my start singing with a group by the name of God's Property. They used to sing this song called Stomp that kind of went big, all over the nation. Yeah. I think they went multi-platinum, but I don't know if anybody's ever heard of them. So yeah, that's how I got my start. From there, I started getting a lot of notice from other artists such as Kim Burrell. Like I mainly started in gospel, and I've been on albums with Marvin Sapp and, Tamla Mann, Kirk Franklin, of course. And from there, it just kind of catapulted into R&B with Ty Tribbett's brother. His name is Thaddeus, who time Jill Scott's MD. And like we met like years before, but we never like connected on anything. So it just became a time when Spot was available and called me up. It was just like, bro, I've been wanting to work with you. So I want to kind of bring you in on this Jill Scott thing. And so history, been in R&B ever since. I mean, I go back and forth between that and gospel. That's pretty much the Deonis story. It's really not much to it.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a lot there to it. I want to know, like, I'm always interested in people's kind of like first memories. Like, what's the first music that you recall really loving as a kid?
Good question. Well, of course, I was born in the 80s. So my dad used to have like tons and tons of records, and all of his records were like, and Fire, Confunction, and, all of those. So like at the time, I didn't realize, what it was. All I thought was, I'm sick of listening to this. So, can you put on something else? As a kid, if you say stuff like that, you get slapped. So, right. But eventually, those types of sounds and those groups kind of grew on me, and it ended up playing a significant role into my sound. And, but I guess to, answer your question, I guess it would be those types of groups that actually kind of got me started into, music the way that I do. And then for some reason, I was attracted to Prince's musicality as a child. It was just good. It was Prince. So yeah, there we go. Prince and those cats that I told you.
You know what? I love the fact that you brought up about your dad playing music, because I remember growing up and my dad on Fridays would play his records. And I just wondered how long was it going to be before Isaac Hayes got to Arizona, because that has to be one of the longest songs, bro. So I feel you a soul baby.
Absolutely. I mean, there was one other record in particular, the JBs that my dad was playing in the car, James Brand, and it was a song called Funky Good Time. And listening to that, I was like, yo, what? What am I listening to at 7? Like, what am I listening to? So, like I've had so many influences. They've been because of funk or soul or, I mean, of course I like your abstract type, music and stuff like that, but those are like my foundation, why I am who I am myself.
Yeah, I can definitely hear those influences in the music that you share with us on IG. So you may have started off not a fan, but it's in your soul now.
It's in me. It's in me. Couldn't take it out.
How old were you when you discovered you could sing?
I guess around junior high. So I had about maybe 13,
okay,
12, 13. I had always knew, but I didn't really care for it as much because, I was into sports. So, I was playing football, basketball, track, all that. And it wasn't until I was walking in the hallway and I noticed, I can get girls with singing. So I started taking my craft seriously to get women as a teenager. So yeah.
I'm glad that worked out for you.
Oh yeah, it worked out very well.
How many talent shows did you do? Because every high school around here had a talent show.
To be totally honest, I didn't do a lot of talent shows. There was one talent show I did when I was 10. I was MC Hammer, and
oh wow,
my sister and her two friends were my fly girl, so they were dancing behind me. I had the hammer pants and t-shirt and glasses and gold chain. I would go to say, there were winners, but I would say that I won that talent show easily.
That's great.
Because got a standing ovation, and it was a crowd of white people, and I guess they've never seen anything like that. Like, oh my God, this guy is amazing. Hey,
that is fantastic.
Yeah, great time, great memories.
How did you learn the art of singing background vocals?
It really just started with the foundation from God's Property. Or I can even take it back a little further. Like, I went to this church called the Potter's House here in Dallas. I actually grew up in that church, and I was on the praise team, and singing in the youth choir, and doing some directing and leading myself. They teach you all that stuff. It's crazy because a lot of singers will come and ask, well, how do you guys pick up parts, and how do you guys know how to sing this? So, church, if you didn't sing it, you'd get a shoe thrown at you. or you'd get in trouble. So we had to learn everybody's part. And, it was that foundation that kind of, propelled me into, background vocalist. It's just those things you never think would take you anywhere. But
it's taking you everywhere.
It's taking me everywhere. Being the church kid.
He say throw the shoe at you. All right, Dr. Clark.
Stop that talking. Yeah.
You trying to see what's going in your mouth? Yeah.
Y'all not paying me. No, I'm just playing. Ain't no job.
Right.
Supposed to be singing for the Lord.
Right. You think I'm punching the clock or something? Like, no.
I wanted to ask more about singing background. What do you think about your craft is misunderstood? And I guess what I'm asking is like, what are some things that your family think about what you do that is not true or is different?
I come from my mom's side. They're like very heavily churched. Heavily churched. And, growing up, getting older, they've kind of like calmed down. And, ever since my grandparents, they passed on and whatnot, they've kind of become a little more independent and free thinking. And, since the age of social media, they see things aren't in this particular box. Everything doesn't have to be, lined up in a specific way. But, everything from I wouldn't be singing that kind of music because they don't glorify God, or they ain't doing nothing but out there having sex and snorting cocaine and blah blah blah. Yo, this is not what we do. like we're normal people. Like we make money. We use our gift to make money, and that's I think that kind of I think anybody that's come from that background kind of has to deal with that misconception of they're all sinners and they're dirty and da 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 da. But it's totally not that at all. We got families we got to feed. We got bills we got to pay. You braid hair, you teach, you do all of that. I mean, I got to use my gifts and my talents to do the same thing so I can get a check. And grow my brand. So I think that's a big misconception on behalf of background vocalists for people who have parents and everyone else in church. It's not a wild party. We're working. We are working. That's what we do.
That's what you do. Now, the names that Courtney mentioned, I'm thinking to myself, Jill Scott, poet, Kirk Franklin, I think he's a genius, music Soulchild, pure soul. Janet Jackson, to us, she's like the queen of it. What is your process when you're working with these talented artists? Or do you have a process?
My process is don't get fired.
That too is my process in life.
That is my process. It's pretty much going in with the idea of bringing what you offer to the table in order to make the entire process better. I feel like anybody who chooses me for anything, they're going to get top shelf. Like if you need vocal production, like a lot of people don't know, like this, like during the Janet Jackson Metamorphosis, like I did a lot of the background vocals for for the vocalists that if they got sick or, if something happened, they would have their vocals already, ready to go. All they would have to do is just show up and act the part out.
Wow.
And a lot of singers do that. They try to have backups just in case anything, just a safety net type thing. I can play, I can write, whatever. It's like you're getting everything in one package. You know what I'm saying? I feel like that's what I mostly bring to the table when you get me.
Nice. Let's shift a little bit too. Let's talk a little bit more about Janet. I definitely want to hear more about the vocal process and all of that. But first, I have to ask a question that we ask a lot here, which is, what 3 Janet Jackson songs describe who Janet Jackson is to you?
Come Back to Me.
This is already off to a solid start.
What's my other 2? Can I name an entire album as a song?
That is cheating a little bit, but yes. The album defines her for you. Yes, please.
Okay, Control. That entire album. My last one, I would have to say Escapade.
Okay.
That's different.
Yeah.
We've not heard these songs listed before. So we always ask people like, because I think because Janet Jackson's catalog is so vast and also so diverse, depending on when people fall in love with Janet Jackson or depending on when they worked with Janet Jackson or someone like you who's saying the entire catalog would be different. But like, I think just when you meet her influences how you see her through her music. And so we've never heard anyone come here and say, "Come Back to Me," Escapade, and the entire Control album. And I love it.
I mean, you got to think about it. Like I was born in the 80s. So Control was my introduction to Janet. So Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, that was my introduction to production. I didn't know it at the time, but like I said, you grow up and then you start researching these things and finding out, this person did this person did that, this person used to do this, you know what I'm saying? So, I guess for me, it's more of the feel of where I was when I heard those songs, or where I was when I first heard Control and how it made me feel. So it's certain songs that just really strike a chord with you. So,
Yeah, no, I absolutely get it. It's about how that song makes you feel.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
How did you get the job with Janet Jackson?
So my friend who is from, we're actually like brothers. He's from Dallas. His name is Daniel Jones. He's the MD. We pretty much grew up together, musically, brother-wise. Like we've just always, been hand in hand. We've always worked on different gigs, and here in the local scene here in Dallas, we actually have a show this coming Sunday.
Oh, okay.
So we'll be lighting the stage up together again, and pretty much I was on tour with Jill Scott, I believe, or actually I think I was with Kanye. I was in the Kanye West choir. And Daniel hit me up with a text message that said, "Are you ready?" I'm like, ready for what? Like, you can't say that and not expect an answer. Like, you can't tell Black people, are you ready? And then not have some type of correspondence after that. Right? So I'm like, ready for what? He was like, we're getting ready to do this Janet thing, and I want you to be a part of it. I was like, yeah, I'm not going to say no to that. So I had to do an audition video, and he sent it in to Janet. Janet loved it, and, the rest is history.
Okay, so what's the audition video? Like, what did you sing? Do you remember?
I think I sang one of her songs. It was, what's the one with all the words? Sitting over here and
that's if. That's if.
Yes.
He said the one with all the words, and we both
knew. Yes. As soon as that's the one I had to audition with.
Ooh, and you killed it. Oh yeah, you the man.
Yeah, like when he first told me the song, I was like, "Y'all want what? Huh? Like, what are you trying to hear?" Exactly. Because this really isn't going to show any range. I guess it was just a thing of, can you remember words? Can you remember melodies?
That's funny. Yeah, because it was like, what, 3 notes?
Right. Just like, it's one note in the verse.
But it's the jam, though.
The song be knocking. Yeah. It be knocking. So,
yeah. But it is a strange test of your vocal ability to like sing in such a limited range.
I'm like, you don't want me to sing something like Missy.
I guess the question was, can you follow instructions? Like, can you?
Right.
Can you focus? Because you have to focus with that song.
Absolutely. But I mean, after singing a song like so many times, it just kind of like falls into your brain, and then it just becomes automatic. So, of course, like when we started the show, it was just like, oh, okay, cool. This is a song I did. Okay, cool. I'm gonna just run through this joint. So, that was crazy. That was a crazy audition, but I loved it.
So once she agreed, wanted you to join the tour, you did an audition tape. How long after that did you get a chance to actually meet her? Or when did you first really meet Janet?
I met her at the rehearsal spot when we started. This is when I was living back in LA. Mm-hmm. And I think I met her the first day.
Wow.
And we were in, the singers were in a separate room. The dancers were in a room. The musicians were in a room. And somebody walked out to go get something. And I hit like an extremely high note. And Janet walked through the door, and she had this look on her face like, who did that? I was like, it was me. She was like, boy, you better sing, like singing high. Like, I was like, oh, y'all, Janet Jackson just told me, y'all. But on the outside, I was just like, yeah. What I did. You gotta play the goal. Yeah. So, But that was my first time meeting her, and like she was wonderful, man. Like she's so meek and kind and beautiful. Like the crush part came out too.
you snapped right back to control, didn't you?
Right.
I love that. What I want to know is, you talked a little bit about the vocal production and kind of like how you build the backgrounds. My question is, how do you translate? What is the process of translating like what we hear on the album to like what you all are doing in the show?
Well, I mean, it comes from listening. It goes back to that whole choir thing that I was talking about. A lot of what we do as singers comes from like, hearing and then trying to emulate that. When I got on the gig, the previous person that was doing the vocal arranging for the background vocalist, I guess he, had the files or whatever. And I think he might've lost them or something like that. So I had to go back and listen to all the songs pretty much and figure the notes out. It wasn't an easy task, but I like it when it's not easy, because the challenge kind of makes you step up to the plate. So it's pretty much just listening relying on that ear, relying on that feeling, and then you get what we translate.
Right. Okay. So obviously, when you showed up, there was no sheet music. So you're listening. And so this is done for every show. So it may not be exactly the same every time, is what you're saying. And I mean, like with the backgrounds from the Janet tour, they might be very different from the backgrounds on the Velvet Rope tour, or is everybody just doing their very best to recreate the album?
Well, no, it just depends on what the arrangement is. Daniel comes up with the musical arrangement, and you put stuff, the familiar stuff where it goes, but somewhere in between there, you have to kind of make it a little different. It's a show, so you're gonna do everything the way that the people remember it, but at the same time, you're wanting to create a show. You're wanting to create an experience.
Right.
So in that, you have to kind of like spice it up or throw a little something else in there, and just give it a different flavor, a different vibe. But you always have to stay consistent with what the people remember, or what they know.
Because I'll be good and hot when I go to shows, and my favorite part, and y'all singing it all crazy, not you, but like this the part I've been waiting for.
Yeah. But then again, I think that just depends on the artist, because working with Jill Scott, like she's very vibey. She doesn't like her music to sound the same.
Yeah.
Like there's so many different versions of He Loves Me. There's so many different versions of what's the song?
Crown Royal.
Let's take a long walk.
Oh, long walk. Okay.
Yeah. There's different versions, and it just depends on how the artist feels. Janet is she wants you to be you, but at the same time, she knows she wants to give the people what they came to hear. So stick to the plan, be you, but stick to the plan.
Right.
So, you know what I'm saying?
Be you within this frame.
Right. And it goes back to just knowing who you're working with and knowing the artist and what they do. I mean, it's not about how am I going to get my leg up? No, you're here to accommodate what the artist wants. And if I've seen a lot of people get fired from gigs, coming in thinking like, yo, I'm about to rip. I'm like, okay. Right.
Okay.
You're going to rip it up right out the door.
What just came to my head? Ain't nobody come to see you, Otis.
I'm the one selling the records.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I think I have one more question in this area. So you talked a little bit about like you helping to do the arrangements, or essentially doing the arrangement. So are you like actually recording however many of the parts there are? Like your voice is the backup voice.
Yeah, it's the singer's voice. So how I did it was I actually brought my recording setup on the road, and we recorded in my room, in my hotel room. And everybody came in and recorded their parts all the way through. It was a long process.
Wow. How long does that take?
It took an entire day. Well, I lied. It took about 2 days. It took about 2 days to do.
That still sounds fast.
Yeah. I mean, we were in Vegas maybe a week out before Metamorphosis started. So I had that time to, like gather everything and make sure all the files were there, make sure all the parts were right, and, But yeah, it took 2 days. It took about 2 days to get that whole process done.
I guess this is the question I want to know. I mean, being on tour for months and you singing all these shows, well, how do you take care of your vocals? How do you keep everything in line and making sure you sound crisp every time you do a show?
I shut up after the show is done.
That makes sense.
I shut up. I don't talk. I mean, I'll go out, I'll have a drink or, hang out for a little bit. But essentially I shut up and I go to sleep. It's a tool, A marathon runner isn't gonna, isn't going to sprint full speed. You know, they're going to take their time, you know, to get to their finish line. It's the same way with singers. It's like, you know your limits, you know when your voice is about to go out. So do what you need to do. You know? Yeah. So it's essentially just shutting up and going to sleep.
And my second question for you is, what did you learn about performing from seeing someone as masterful as Janet? Did you take any notes about her stage presence, how she's just what she does?
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing I took from Janet was just her absolute will to please the people. You know what I'm saying? It's one thing to be a singer, but it's another thing to be a performer. Janet has both, and she utilizes it so well. I don't think anybody that can come into that camp, I don't think you can't come away not learning something. I feel like if you have to be able to take things and apply it to your own self, your own career. And, you know, I definitely took that charisma and that will to please with me. You know, just doing the ultimate best that I can whenever I perform.
I'm still on these harmonies.
You can't let the harmonies go.
I can't. I have so many questions, but I'm trying to get them like right in my brain. I guess I'll make a statement and then I kind of want to give a reaction. So there's two things that I kind of want to probe around the singing. I think, you know, Janet does all of her own harmonies, or most of them for the studio albums. And I'm just curious, one, how would you describe her approach to harmony? You know, well, the trio, you know, Janet, Jimmy, and Terry, like their approach to harmonies, how are they maybe different from maybe other harmonies, or how are you like, no, they're exactly the same? Like what is their approach to musical stylings? Because, you know, I'm listening to you say you have to record all these parts, and like I'm just thinking like, you know, I know that like when Jimmy Jam was recording like the Control album, for instance, you know, they had, you know, 16, sometimes 20 tracks of just background vocals.
Absolutely.
And so I'm just kind of thinking like, what are your comments about her approach to harmonies and how that sits in the industry?
When I think of Janet's vocals, her background vocals, I think of like lush colors, you know. But I also think that's a testament to Jimmy and Terry. If you listen to Ralph Tresvant, have y'all ever like heard his solo project? They produced that.
Yeah.
And if you listen to his background vocals, what do they sound like? They sound like Janet. If you listen to what's some other people they produced, that song "I'm Only Human," I didn't even realize that was them, and then I heard like the chord changes.
Yeah,
and you know the music. I was just like, "Yo, that's Jimmy Jam."
Yes, they definitely have some little tricks of the trade that, like, even though a lot of their stuff is so vastly different, they have like some little keystones in there that, like, you hear that one thing, you're like,
that's it.
Yeah,
I know it's you.
Yeah, and it's. I think there's a certain key. It may be like E flat or F sharp, if I'm not mistaken, but that's how I could tell, you know, that it was a Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis production, and then on top of that, the vocal production. But it's a testament to them and how they produce. I mean, of course, you need the vocal, you need the voice to actually translate what they're trying to produce. But, you know, anything they've produced with background vocals has had that lush, colorful sound. But I think Janet has been the one to exceptionally bring that to life. You know, like her tone is just incredible when it's dealing with their production. Like it's a perfect marriage.
It's funny that the first name you called out was Ralph Tresvant, because like one of my favorite things to hear Jimmy talk about is, you know, how the harmonies that he built with Janet are kind of like a part of their signature sound. And he really says that there's only one other person who was able to really comprehend and do their own harmonies in the way that Janet can do it. And he named Ralph Tresvant. He's like, he's the only other person. And he's like, and it's not just like maybe other people couldn't eventually figure it out, but either they weren't as comfortable with their voices. Maybe they didn't trust the tones because, they play a lot of notes that are next to each other and stacked differently.
Yeah.
But also just the repetition, right? Like, you're trying to convince a superstar, like, okay, do it 19 more times.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that's the amazing thing. Like I saw that video that they did back in the 80s with Donnie Simpson, and they were talking about how they produced Janet's vocals, and some notes would be like fifths and sixths and sevenths and 13ths, and it would sound funny, at the time, but once the entire process came together, you would actually hear how it would make sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you have to have some type of extreme talent and capability to be able to hear and sing that way in order to to come out with the finished product. And Janet and Ralph and all of the other people who figured that equation out, they've been successful with it. And I'm actually I'm so happy to be a part of it, in some way.
Sounds like you figured the equation out too.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. Like, even before me getting with Janet, it's like I've always been like a harmony buff. Like I've always been somebody that loves lush harmonies and parts and different types of movements, that type of thing. So for me, it was almost like coming home, coming to Janet, singing with her. So
I'm gonna stay here for a second because dog with a bone.
She got you in the corner, man. She got you.
You must be a singer.
Ooh, Deonis, you do not want to know.
Oh,
sidebar. I had been watching videos about like how to find your true voice because I am literally the world's worst singer. Not only does it hurt my ears, but it hurts my voice. And so I was like, I'm just like trying to figure out like what is my actual range so that maybe like I could try to like practice without hurting myself. And I just was like, I'm over it. Like this is not for me.
you got one of them the spirit is willing voices, huh?
You know what? You can't be good at everything. I'm gonna miss this show.
What they say, many are called, but few are chosen.
Yes.
and some of them chosen ones don't need to be.
Right. They were mistaken. They were not chosen. Yeah. So like, I guess a couple things still with Janet's voice. I wanted to ask you, like, what was the most surprising thing about her voice? Maybe the first time you all sang live together. What was something you noticed immediately or you expected but didn't happen? Or
like her runs are incredible. Like it's one thing to perform, but then have all that energy and perform and sing.
Mm-hmm.
Your voice can be affected by that, like shaking and, missing a note, or like she's flawless. She's like, how do you do that?
Mm-hmm.
Like the only other person that I know that can do that is Beyonce.
Mm-hmm.
Like she can do movements. She can jump out of an airplane and still hit runs like it's none of their business. Like I don't get it. I can't do that. That's one of the things I can't do. But I think that's what amazed me most about her is just the endurance with her vocal ability and being able to dance and move around the stage so gracefully. Like that's amazing to me. That's absolutely amazing to me.
Wow. Okay, I got one more in this area, then I'm gonna let Kam have a turn. I'm so glad for what you just said. One of the things I think is probably the biggest frustration of being a Janet Jackson fan is you hear people constantly saying she can't sing, she whispers, she does, all this other stuff. And we're like, Janet fans are like, seriously? Like, did you hear? Like, are you listening to these harmonies? Because that's her. Like, are you hearing what we're hearing?
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that in the industry, you don't hear that talk. Like, one of our favorite singers, Brandy, is always like really quick to say her vocal talent, especially vocal arrangements and harmonies, are just unmatched.
Yeah.
Like, what would you say? Like, if someone came to you and were like, Janet Jackson can't sing. What you even doing on tour with her? She don't even sing. Like, what would you say?
stop listening to music because you don't know what you're talking about. you don't know what you're talking about. Like, stop it. And this isn't even me, just being in her crew. It's a thing of, a singer, somebody that can't sing,
right?
But when somebody comes along and says Janet Jackson can't sing, just stop listening to music. Just stop. And you just brought it up. Those harmonies, those runs that she does, like from what I've experienced, it's just like, you can't tell me anything else. Like, just stop listening to music. Stop.
Like, you don't even deserve music.
Stop it.
Okay, I'm gonna piggyback off of what you just said and ask this question right here. Do you think that because Janet is not one of those kick off your shoes, holler every note? I'm not saying that that's wrong, but sometimes that's how performers perform. Do you think that there's this misconception that you have to do all of that to be known as a vocalist or as a singer?
I think there is a big misconception, especially in the gospel world. You don't really hear a lot of diverse singers in gospel music. Everybody sounds the same to me, I guess you could say. And I think the standard has been set by Kim Burrell, because she's a vocal god at the end of the day. And the industry has kind of flipped, or the gospel industry has kind of flipped its mode to, well, if you don't sound like that, then you can't get in. And I do think that's a big misconception. Just because I can't do a scale down, like a run down the scale, doesn't mean I can't sing. That's just not my thing.
Right.
That's just what it is. But you can't really, I feel like you can't measure your talent against someone else's, because someone else's talent is different from yours. I think a lot of artists dip out of music because that's the pressure that they get. That's the pressure that they get from, artists that are already in the industry. Yeah.
Because I'm like that. Sometimes some of my favorite singers, I'm like, don't go to church. Don't go to church right now.
Well, I have an aversion to being yelled at. So I just, I can only take so much, because I know it's coming from a good place, but I just can only take so much.
Just stop yelling at me, please.
And another question I have, as a background singer, how much discipline do you need to have to perform night in and night out?
It depends on the artist, but at the same time, you have to already come in with a mindset of, this is work. I'm here to deliver my services for an artist. And it's really not that hard. To me, it's not hard, because I guess I could say I've been trained. I've been trained to be on time. I've been trained to know your words and your lyrics and your music. I've been trained to not speak, but listen. I've been trained to do all of those things that will advance you to the next level. A lot of people aren't fortunate. They're not fortunate to learn those things, and they end up on the side of the road, like getting left. But it all goes back to that church background.
Yeah.
I got two more Janet questions. Well, actually, we got three, but I've got two more right now. As a background singer for Janet, if you could take one song off and just watch her perform, what song would it be and why?
Now, would I get to be a part of the show?
I already know. I already know.
Sure.
I mean, it's just, let's keep it real.
You are part of the audience. You are there front row.
And she called me up on stage and to get locked in to the flatline contraption where she could just do whatever. Yeah.
Y'all, be like, whatever song that's going on, that's
the name is escaping me right now. But I just want to be that one.
Oh yeah.
That one.
Where she climbed. I was like, she is climbing these men.
Listen, I know how it feels not being able to be the person on the table. Just imagine being on the table.
That is great. Not the answer I expected.
Yeah.
But that is great. That is great.
I'm just saying. You said if I wasn't a part of the show.
I didn't think about that, but that makes perfect sense.
You know, I have to tell my wife, yo, you just gonna have to be mad at me.
He said it's worth being on the couch for one night. He can do one night on the couch.
I'm good. Like, y'all need anything? Yo, cool. I'm gonna go hit my couch.
Singing wise, like, what is your favorite Janet Jackson song to sing?
My favorite Janet Jackson song, Come Back to Me. I really love that song, man.
Yes.
Is it not the best song ever?
To me.
I love it. It's it is top 5 Janet Jackson for me. And I just think the harmonies are so beautiful. But also I feel like on that particular album, on Rhythm Nation, she sang in a range. It was like honey. She just lived there.
Absolutely. I'll say another thing that did it for me in that song was the video. Mm-hmm. The one they shot in Paris. The imagery along with that song. Yes. Oh my God. Mm-hmm. Oh my God. Yo, nothing like that. We just did a pod on that video. And it's funny because Kam and I probably Kam watches it more often than I have. I probably hadn't seen the video in, no lie, 12 years. And so I watched it for the podcast, and Kam was laughing because I was like able to describe it scene by scene, and I hadn't seen it in like a decade. I was like, it just, even though it's so simple and plain, it just tells such a beautiful story. It's like, it's hard to forget it. Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's just the footage, and then just like, I don't know what style you call that, the way they shot it. It just had this. That was that Dominic
Sena. Yep, that was Dominic.
You know, he's Let's Wait a While. You get that same, even though it's black and white, Let's Wait a While, it's still kind of that same cinematic storytelling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But, it was still, oh my God.
But with a song like Come Back to Me, you really have to use that imagery that he uses. And I'll tell you, and we've, like she said, we did Come Back to You before. I just love the fact that it's not a complex love song. It's a simple love song that stays with you forever.
It's hard.
Yeah. Just the little things, like, I don't have nothing else to say. Like,
if you don't come back at this point, hey, that's on you.
I've done my best.
and what a lot of people don't understand, there's a different mix to that song, the 12-inch mix, where it starts off with the strings, which are like my absolute favorite instrument. It starts off with the strings, and then like the and then it breaks down going to that bridge. And when she's talking, come back to me wherever you are, I love you. Like that bell thing is going in.
It's so many little touches. And if I'm not mistaken, Kam, correct me if I'm incorrect or misremembering, but Come Back to Me is the song where they were pretty much like, we're done. Mm-hmm. And Jan comes in and she listens to the song and she says, this would be nice with strings, huh?
Yep.
And so then
Was that your favorite song to sing while working with her, or was there a different song?
Actually, y'all are going to laugh at me, but it's Rhythm Nation.
Really?
Yes.
That is surprising.
Yes.
Okay.
Because we actually got to go on stage with her.
Oh.
So in the setup in Vegas, we were in these boxes, kind of like in the 80s, like how she did on the Grammys. Mm-hmm. Like it was those same boxes. So I lied to y'all. It was When I Think of You.
Oh.
Yes. That's my favorite song.
Really?
Yeah.
Her first number one.
We were also on stage with her then. So she would interact with us, and we made up some moves and stuff, and she would do the moves.
That is
great. So that was like my favorite song to sing with her. Yeah.
I love that. All right. A couple questions about what you're working on. So tell us a little bit about it. And
well, I mean, the project is out. The project has been out since last June. The name of this is Fresh.
Wait a minute. Okay, I don't want to interrupt because I want you to tell us about Fresh, but I've been watching you do stuff every day.
Yeah, I mean that like the stuff that I do on my Instagram page is just, it's just stuff to do.
Okay, so you just staying sharp.
Yeah, like
because we thought I was like, oh, any day now we about to get.
I thought you was like next week or something.
Any day now.
I'm pretty much soliciting myself to other artists and hip hop artists and whatnot.
Gotcha.
But don't let that fool you. I am working on a project right now.
Okay.
It's the follow up to the one I released in June, Fresh. So it's going to be not so fresh.
Okay.
Is that the title?
Yeah, that's the title.
That's great.
Fresh was the introduction to a relationship or a guy meeting a girl saying, I think you're bad. I think this, let's go out. Let's go have fun. And then that ends up turning into a one night stand, which the guy falls in love with the girl. And there's the to be continued, ... Not so fresh will be the answer to that, to where the guy is just like, okay, we're in a relationship, but you're starting to do things I don't like.
Oh,
I'm starting to see. I'm starting to see things that I necessarily can't get with.
Okay.
But we've all been in those types of situations.
Absolutely. And sometimes those things that are starting to grate on your nerves are the very things that you thought were darling.
Absolutely.
Now it ain't so fresh no more.
Right, 6 months later, you're like,
not so fresh.
Remember when I said I liked your little attitude? I don't like that little attitude no more.
Nah. You getting on my nerves right now. Right. And you're not so fresh right now.
Okay, I hear you.
I feel them on that.
But Fresh is available. It's available on all digital outlets under my name, and 5 great tracks written by myself and a couple other people. I did all the music production, and I think I'm going to shoot a video for one of the songs here soon. I was supposed to shoot it last year, but of course the pandemic happened and just threw everything off. Music is timeless. So
absolutely is. Yeah. I've heard those tracks. When you say timeless, you mean it, because it feels like it could have happened in the 90s and the 2000s, and now it's and that's kind of some of my favorite type of music. And that's how I feel about a lot of Janet Jackson songs, is like you don't know where they live, and that makes them better, I think.
Absolutely. And I tried to touch on different eras of R&B music. I did a little mystic vibe type joint that everybody's on today. Went back and grabbed New Edition's Candy Girl. I took that break beat and made the title song Fresh. So eventually I'll end up shooting the video for the second song on that project called Let Me Know, where it's nothing but a bass line that's keeping the rhythm of the song, but it has a bounce to it that's undeniable.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be looking for that. Tell us, what so far in your career, what are you most proud of?
The will to not quit. You would think I would say working with this artist or working with that artist, but I think the will to not quit, is probably the best thing, because there's so many obstacles being in this industry. There's so many ups and downs, and I didn't get picked for this, I didn't get picked for that. Somebody said this about me and it ain't true. And it's just so many things that you have to deal with. And there are times where you just want to be like, man, forget this. I'm gonna just go be a barber.
Right.
So I think that is the most important thing, like just not quitting, because the work is always gonna come. It's gonna come. It may not come in the time that you think it should, or where you really need it, but it'll come. The thing is, can you sustain yourself through the nose? Yeah. So
I need to put that on a t-shirt.
I received that. Yes.
That's a t-shirt right there. I just want to ask you about God's property. And I just want really not ask you or a question about it per se, but I just want to let you know, I played the mess out of that CD. And I'm telling on myself because I made pretty much every member of my family a copy of that CD. But that CD, yes, we're going to say 12 because some people kept losing theirs. But that CD played such an important role in my life because even now, anytime I'm feeling like down, even up, I always go back to that CD. And it's one track called More Than I Can Bear. Can you please?
Yeah, my boy, James Henderson.
That's who sings that?
Yeah, James Henderson.
Oh, his voice is like silk, man. And the way he delivers that song, whoa, it touched my soul, bro.
Yeah, absolutely.
What else do you want us to know? What else do we need to know?
Just look forward to more music coming from me. And I'm pretty sure once this pandemic ends, you'll see me on the stage with Janet, Jill, whoever.
Man, we hope so.
Yeah.
We hope
I
so.
really got to catch Jill the next time she goes on tour. My sister saw her in Memphis way back. I think this when Volume 3 came out, and she still talks about that concert. And I'm just like, I'm so jealous. Like, I want to see Jill for real.
You know what? We didn't ask something, and if we got to cut it, you could tell us cut it, or you might be like, I don't have no information for you. But we didn't ask anything about a tour that we had tickets for that the pandemic canceled. How close were we to getting Black Diamond? Were you a part of the project?
I don't have any information on that. Because honestly, I thought Black Diamond was going to be a tour. I didn't know there was an album coming along with that.
Mm-hmm.
Had I known, I probably would have tried to submit something.
Right.
So, I honestly thought it was just a tour. So, but from what I'm understanding, it's still going to happen. It's just the whole pandemic. They have to say it's okay for people to congregate. Right. And I'm pretty sure she'll be back on top of it.
Will you be a part of that? Do you know yet?
I've talked to the MD. He's pretty much said, yeah, but things change and life happens.
We understand that.
And we'll see what happens.
All right. One last question, I guess, and that is about Miss Janet Jackson. How do you think Janet Jackson should be remembered?
As a musical icon.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's really nothing else to say. I mean, that says it all. She's done TV, she's done movies. I mean, she's a legend. She's a musical legend living, period.
All right. Great. That is it for us for now. If you need more Janet Jackson, which we know you need more Janet Jackson, you can subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
If you're already a subscriber, please tell a Janet Jackson fan about us and leave us a rating or review whenever you're listening. Your comments and ratings help other people find us, especially on iTunes.
If you're not already, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Janet Jackson Pod. If you are following, thank you for every like and every single retweet, especially on episode releases. Those are simple things you can do, and they go a long way to help us reach new Janet Jackson fans.
Our intro and outro music, Good For You, is provided by THBD and is licensed under the Creative Commons 3.0 license.
Thanks for listening to Janet Today, Janet Tomorrow, Janet Forever.